The interstellar exploration ship Odyssey drifted through the dark emptiness of the Omega sector. Space stretched endlessly in every direction, a vast canvas of black sprinkled with distant stars. Commander Ilara Voss stood on the bridge, her hands resting lightly on the control rail, eyes scanning the vast darkness beyond the viewports. Her crew moved with quiet efficiency, checking instruments and monitoring sensors. They had been traveling for weeks without incident, and the calm of deep space had begun to lull some of them into a false sense of comfort. Ilara knew better. The Omega sector was uncharted, and its very name carried warnings. Probes sent decades ago had vanished without a trace. Signal relays had failed, and no human presence had ever lingered here for long. Every crew member aboard the Odyssey understood that their mission was dangerous, but they had volunteered, driven by curiosity, by ambition, and, for some, by the dream of seeing what no human had seen before. The hum of the ship's engines and the occasional beep from the navigation console were the only sounds on the bridge. The crew's chatter was minimal. Even the usual jokes and playful arguments had faded under the weight of isolation. The Odyssey was a self-sufficient vessel, equipped for months of travel, yet no amount of preparation could erase the feeling of being utterly alone in an infinite void. "Commander, we're entering a region of spatial anomaly," reported Lieutenant Aaron Cho, the ship's chief engineer, his voice calm but tinged with unease. Aaron was responsible for the integrity of the ship and its propulsion systems, and he had an instinctive ability to detect subtle changes in the environment that others often overlooked. Ilara nodded without looking away from the viewports. "Signal patterns?" she asked. "Unstable," Aaron replied. "There's energy interference, fluctuating readings across multiple frequencies. Nothing we can pinpoint yet, but it's unusual for this sector." Ilara straightened and took a deep breath. "Keep monitoring. Notify me immediately if it changes. And alert security to maintain readiness." "Yes, Commander." Aaron's tone was respectful but carried a hint of concern. The crew continued their routines, checking equipment, running diagnostics and logging observations. Everything seemed ordinary. Too ordinary, Ilara thought. It was the quiet that worried her the most. Space was never silent. Even in the vacuum, phenomena produced faint vibrations, electromagnetic whispers, subtle disturbances that those trained to hear them could notice. Tonight, there was only the hum of the engines, steady and unchanging. It was late in the ship's cycle when the first anomaly appeared. Tarek, the security officer, was making his rounds near the exterior observation deck, a narrow corridor enclosed in reinforced glass panels. He stopped abruptly, staring at the outer hull of the Odyssey. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light or fatigue playing on his mind. Then he saw it again. Footprints, clear, distinct, and perfectly spaced across the metal surface of the hull. Tarek's breath caught. "No, that's impossible," he muttered. He reached for the intercom and called the bridge. "Commander Voss, you need to see this." Within minutes, Ilara arrived at the observation deck. She adjusted the lighting and peered through the glass. There they were, footprints etched into the outer surface, as if someone had walked along the hull in the vacuum of space. The prints were unmistakable, human in shape, but utterly inexplicable. The Odyssey's hull was designed to withstand micrometeoroids and solar radiation, not human weight outside of the protective EVA suits. Aaron joined them, followed by Lena, the young scientist who specialized in alien biology and exoplanetary phenomena. Each of them examined the footprints, their expressions a mix of disbelief and concern. "No one has been outside for days," Aaron said. "Our EVA logs are clean. Only authorized crew have ever performed spacewalks, and all were fully recorded. There's no way these prints are from us." Lena crouched, examining the footprints closely. The spacing, The pressure? It's consistent. Whoever, or whatever, made these prints had a steady gait. And look at this, she said, pointing at a section of the hull that curved at an impossible angle. This section is completely inaccessible. Even drones can't reach it without risking damage. Elara felt a chill. Her mind raced through possibilities. A prank? Impossible in the vacuum of space. A hallucination? The entire crew had access to the observation deck, and several had confirmed the prints. Alien life? Perhaps. But why walk across the hull without engaging, attacking, or even communicating? The prints seemed deliberate, observant, almost ceremonial in nature. She straightened and addressed the small group. We stay calm. No one goes outside until we understand what's happening. Aaron, run a full diagnostic on all sensors and EVA drones. Lena, check for any biological traces or energy signatures that might explain this. Tarek, maintain security and keep watch. I want eyes on the hull 24/7. Hours passed. The crew worked tirelessly, scanning, analyzing, and theorizing. Yet nothing provided a definitive explanation. The footprints were clean. No radiation spikes, no material residue, no signs of tampering. Every attempt to replicate them failed. Drones sent outside returned images of an empty hull. The prints remained, as if an invisible presence had walked there and then vanished into thin air. At first, the crew tried to rationalize. Maybe it's some form of ice crystal or residue that looks like footprints, one engineer suggested. Or maybe a micrometeorite pattern. But the pattern was too precise, too deliberate, and it reappeared in different sections of the hull overnight, sometimes in areas completely inaccessible to drones or crew. Fear began to creep into the minds of some crew members. Whispers spread, questions that dared not be spoken aloud. Who or what was outside? Why were they observing the Odyssey? Were they friendly, curious, or hostile? Elara refused to show her own unease. She had faced uncertainty before and survived. Humanity had always thrived by confronting the unknown with intelligence, courage, and unity. The Odyssey's crew would need all three if they were to survive whatever came next. She called a meeting in the main conference room, gathering the senior officers. "We don't know what we are dealing with," she began, her voice calm but firm. "We have to be cautious. But we also cannot let fear control us. This ship represents humanity. Our actions will define what we become in the eyes of the universe. Keep your focus, follow protocol, and remember, humans adapt. We survive, we learn. That is what makes us strong." Lena spoke up, her voice tinged with excitement despite the tension. "Commander, I think these footprints aren't random. They appear to follow energy patterns in the spatial distortion. Someone, or something, is interacting with the anomaly, studying us." Elara considered this. It made sense. The Omega sector was unstable, full of unknown energies and distortions. If an intelligent being could survive or manipulate those conditions, they would have no trouble observing a vessel like the Odyssey. "Then we are not alone," Elara said quietly. "And they are interested in us." That night, the crew kept vigil. Lights dimmed. Sensors active, eyes glued to screens and viewports. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow suspicious. And yet, there was something exhilarating about it too. Humanity had always dreamed of discovery. This was discovery at its most extreme, contact with the unknown. Tarek was the first to notice movement outside. He leaned against the observation deck, staring at the hull. "There," he whispered. A shadow flitted across the surface, moving with purpose, leaving a new set of footprints in its wake. Elara arrived instantly, her pulse quickening. The prints formed a straight line along the hull, heading toward the command deck's outer structure. No one could explain how the being, or whatever it was, defied physics, gravity, and vacuum. And yet, the evidence was undeniable. The crew stood together, watching in silent awe. Fear mingled with fascination. They were on the edge of a revelation, witnessing a first-contact scenario unlike anything humanity had prepared for. And though none of them knew what would happen next, one thing was certain. The universe was no longer indifferent to humanity. Someone, somewhere, was watching, studying, and perhaps even recognizing them. Ilara looked at her crew and smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and determination. Humanity had faced the impossible before and emerged stronger. This time would be no different. They would meet the unknown with courage, intelligence, and unity. And they would prove that humanity, even in the darkest reaches of space, was never alone, never insignificant, and never afraid to face the impossible. As the night wore on, the footprints continued to appear, always in impossible places, always leaving questions without answers. And somewhere in the void outside, a silent observer watched the humans aboard the Odyssey, intrigued by their ingenuity, their spirit, and their courage. For the first time, the crew realized something remarkable. Humanity had passed a threshold. They were no longer just travelers in space. They were beings worth observing, beings capable of wonder, invention, and resilience. And that realization, quiet but powerful, filled the bridge of the Odyssey with a new kind of light, one that came not from stars, nor engines, nor sensors, but from the human spirit itself. The Omega sector was still dark. The universe was still vast and unknown. But the humans aboard the Odyssey felt something extraordinary. They were seen, they were recognized, and whatever awaited them in the void, they would face it together. The next morning, the Odyssey hummed quietly through the darkness of the Omega sector. The footprints remained, stubborn and mysterious, a constant reminder that the crew was being watched. Commander Ilara Voss gathered her senior team in the ship's conference room. The tension was thick, but determination shone in their eyes. Humanity was known for facing the unknown with courage, and this crew would prove that reputation was deserved. "Here is what we know," Ilara began, her voice calm but commanding. "The footprints are real. They appear on the outer hull in places we cannot reach. They are precise, measured, and consistent. No signs of aggression have been observed, but someone, or something, is interacting with us. Lena, your analysis?" Lena, her hair tied back in a neat braid, spread a series of holographic images across the table. The prints were magnified, showing faint energy patterns that had previously gone unnoticed. "These footprints align with the anomalies in the spatial field outside. I believe they are intelligent. Whoever made them is aware of our presence and our activities. It is as if they are studying us, learning from us." Aaron Cho leaned forward, running his hand over his chin. "If this is an intelligent species, they can survive in extreme conditions. Vacuum, radiation, zero gravity. They are not limited by our weaknesses. We cannot fight them, and we cannot reach them directly. All we can do is observe and respond." Ilara nodded. "Then we will respond intelligently. We will learn, adapt, and demonstrate that humanity is capable of ingenuity. Prepare a full scan of the hull and the surrounding space. Tarek, maintain security and prepare for any unexpected activity. We do not panic. We act." Hours passed as the crew worked tirelessly. Drones were deployed, moving cautiously around the hull, scanning for biological signatures, energy emissions, or any sign of the entity responsible for the footprints. Each time the drones returned with no findings, the tension grew. The footprints were always one step ahead, appearing in impossible locations, taunting them with their mystery. During one routine check, Lena noticed something unusual. "Commander," she called from the analysis station, "look at this." Ilara approached, glancing at the monitor. The energy readings showed a faint pulse, almost like a heartbeat moving in sync with the footprints. "It's subtle," Lena explained, But there's intelligence behind it. Someone is choosing where to step. They are testing the hull, our responses, maybe even our courage. Ilara's mind raced. Humanity had always faced challenges with creativity and resilience. If these beings were observing them, then the crew of the Odyssey would demonstrate exactly what made humans remarkable. Then we respond, she said firmly. We will show that we are capable, resourceful, and united. Prepare a controlled interaction. Let's make them see who we are. The crew set to work. Using the ship's light and vibration systems, Lena designed a series of signals that could be transmitted through the hull. These signals were simple at first. Pulses of light and sound carefully calibrated to match the rhythm of the observed patterns. It was their first attempt to communicate indirectly with the unknown observer. That night, the Odyssey's exterior deck was quiet. Sensors were active, drones hovered nearby, and the crew waited with bated breath. The signals were sent, small bursts of light along the hull, following the same path as the mysterious footprints. For hours, nothing happened. Doubt crept in, whispering in the minds of the crew. Perhaps they had imagined the entire phenomenon. Perhaps the universe was indifferent to human efforts. Then the hull shifted slightly in the viewing monitors. Shadows moved against the metallic surface, faint but deliberate. Footprints appeared, aligned perfectly with the signals. Whoever or whatever was outside had acknowledged their attempt at communication. Lena gasped. They responded. They are intelligent. They are interacting with us. The realization swept through the crew. Fear and uncertainty gave way to fascination and pride. Humanity had always dreamed of being noticed in the vast cosmos, and now the Odyssey was a stage for that acknowledgement. Ilara kept a steady gaze on the monitors. Prepare a second, more complex signal, she instructed. Let's show them the ingenuity humans are capable of. If they are studying us, we must demonstrate curiosity, problem-solving, and creativity. That is what makes us who we are. Over the next few days, the crew worked in shifts, designing patterns of light, vibrations, and even minor energy pulses to convey more intricate messages. They were careful, methodical, ensuring every signal was precise and safe for the ship's systems. Every time the footprints appeared in response, the crew felt a growing sense of connection, a strange bridge between humanity and the unknown. During a routine check, Tarek noticed something new. "Commander, there's movement near the outer command deck," he reported, voice tight with excitement and tension. "The prints, they're different, larger, more deliberate." Ilara joined him immediately. Through the reinforced observation panels, she saw a figure, translucent, humanoid in shape, gliding effortlessly along the hull. It did not wear a suit, yet it moved with purpose. Its form shimmered against the blackness of space, reflecting faint light from distant stars. The crew held their breath, frozen in awe. Lena activated her communication system, transmitting subtle signals directly through the hull, synchronized with the entity's movements. The response was immediate. The figure paused, adjusted its steps, and moved in a pattern that seemed to mimic the signals. It was learning from them, acknowledging them, and testing them. "This is incredible," Lena whispered. "They are studying us, not attacking. They are intelligent, observant, and curious. They want to understand humanity." Ilara felt a mixture of pride and relief. Humanity had always faced overwhelming challenges with courage and intellect. Now they were being recognized for it. "Then we continue," she said firmly. "We respond with our best. Let them see who we are." The following days became a rhythm of observation, signal, response, and analysis. The crew slept in shifts, taking turns at the observation deck to ensure no detail was missed. Every footprint, every shadow, every pulse of energy was studied. The crew learned to anticipate the patterns, to adjust their signals, and to work together seamlessly. Humanity, in the form of this small ship and its dedicated crew, was proving its adaptability and intelligence. Tensions arose as well. Some crew members struggled with fear, whispering doubts when alone. "What if they are dangerous?" one engineer asked quietly. "What if this is a trap?" Ilara addressed the concerns openly. "We do not know their intentions, but we do know humanity's strengths. We do not panic. We do not flee. We observe, learn, and respond intelligently. That is our advantage. Fear is natural, but courage and knowledge define us. Remember that." Her words resonated. Slowly, the crew began to see the situation not as a threat, but as an extraordinary opportunity. Humanity was being tested, observed, and acknowledged in a way no human had ever experienced, and humans, by nature, thrived in such challenges. One day, while monitoring the hull, Lena noticed a subtle change. The entity seemed to be leaving traces, tiny patterns, almost like symbols, etched into the hull with energy pulses visible only through sensitive scanners. "Commander, these may be a form of communication," she suggested. "We are not just being observed. We are being spoken to." Ilara's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Then we listen carefully. Humanity must respond with respect, intelligence, and creativity. This is a dialogue unlike any other. It is a chance to show the universe what we are capable of." Over the next few cycles, the crew refined their responses, creating sequences of light and vibration that conveyed increasing complexity. They represented patterns of numbers, simple equations, and even musical tones. The entity responded each time, adjusting its movements to match, creating a silent, elegant exchange that filled the Odyssey with purpose and meaning. Night after night, the crew watched in wonder as the footprints formed intricate patterns along the hull. They were no longer terrifying or inexplicable. They had become a form of recognition, a mirror reflecting humanity's ingenuity and spirit. Even Tarek, once fearful, began to feel pride. "We are being tested," he said quietly, "and I think we are passing." Ilara smiled, a rare moment of warmth crossing her face. Humanity has always passed its tests. On Earth, we faced challenges from the smallest microbes to the vastness of the oceans. In space, we face unknowns greater than anything before. And yet, here we are, learning, adapting, thriving. That is who we are. The crew grew closer through the shared experience. Meals were eaten together in shifts. Conversations were held about patterns, theories, and the potential nature of the entity outside. They speculated on its form, its intelligence, and its purpose, each discussion reinforcing the bond of trust and teamwork that made them stronger. Then, one cycle, the entity did something entirely unexpected. The footprints formed a sequence that led directly to the ship's primary sensors. The crew realized that it was directing them to observe, perhaps even to understand. Lena analyzed the sequence and discovered hidden energy patterns, faint but distinct, embedded within the entity's movements. It was a form of teaching, a way to share knowledge without words. "This is remarkable," Lena said, her voice filled with awe. "They are not just observing. They are guiding us, helping us learn. They recognize our potential." Ilara's heart swelled with pride. Humanity had always sought knowledge. Humanity had always reached beyond itself, exploring the unknown, learning, surviving, and thriving. And now, even in the farthest reaches of uncharted space, humanity was being acknowledged for exactly that. As the Odyssey drifted further into the Omega sector, the footprints continued, always leading, always observing, always challenging. And the crew, inspired by the human spirit of curiosity and courage, rose to meet every challenge, every puzzle, every silent test. For the first time, the crew understood something profound. Humanity was not insignificant. Humanity was capable of wonder, of learning, of courage. And somewhere beyond the void, an observer had recognized it. The Odyssey sailed on, deeper into the unknown, and the humans aboard knew that they were no longer just explorers. They were representatives of an entire species, tested and acknowledged by forces far beyond their comprehension. And they would rise to meet every challenge, every mystery, every unknown, with the intelligence, unity, and courage that defined humanity itself. The Odyssey had grown accustomed to the presence of the mysterious observer. Footprints continued to appear on the hull, patterns shifting and changing in ways that suggested intelligence and curiosity. The crew had adapted, learning to interpret the subtle movements as a form of communication. What had begun as fear and confusion had evolved into cautious excitement. Humanity was no longer alone, and the universe seemed to be acknowledging them in a way no human had ever experienced. Ilara stood on the observation deck, watching the latest formation of footprints glinting faintly in the ship's lights. She had spent countless hours analyzing their patterns with Lena and Arin. The formations were more complex than anything they had seen before, almost like symbols. Each new arrangement seemed to convey information, a message hidden in the curves and angles of the prints. It was clear that the entity wanted to interact, to teach, or to test them. "We are learning from them," Lena said softly beside her. "They're giving us guidance, showing us patterns, teaching us something about the energy in this sector." Ilara nodded. "And they are learning from us too. This is not just observation. It is interaction. Humanity is being measured by how we respond." For the first time since entering the Omega sector, the crew began to see the observer not as a threat, but as a partner in discovery. The entity had never caused harm, never interfered aggressively, and had always remained at a distance. It moved with purpose, leaving footprints along the hull in ways that seemed deliberate, almost careful. The humans had responded with signals, lights, and vibrations, creating a silent dialogue that neither side fully understood, but both were participating in. One cycle, the entity did something extraordinary. As the crew watched, footprints began forming a straight path leading to the outer command deck, a section that had never been approached by the observer before. The prints stopped at the hatch of the airlock, the reinforced door separating the hull from the interior of the ship. It was as if the entity was signaling a direct invitation for contact. Ilara called a meeting of the senior officers. "This is unprecedented," she said. "They are initiating a direct interaction. We must proceed carefully, but we also must act boldly. Humanity has faced the unknown before, and we have always risen to meet it. This is another moment to prove ourselves." Arin Cho frowned. "Commander, the airlock is designed to handle EVA operations, but this is different. Whoever, or whatever, this is, they can survive in the vacuum. We have no idea what will happen if we open the hatch." "We prepare," Ilara said firmly. "We gather every precaution, every tool, every method of communication we have. We respond intelligently and with courage." The crew suited up for a controlled EVA operation. Lena prepared the light and vibration transmitters to continue the dialogue. Tarek and the security team monitored every movement, ready to respond if danger arose. Even the youngest crew members, nervous but determined, participated in the planning and execution. Humanity thrived when challenges demanded unity, and now that unity was being tested in the most extreme environment imaginable. The airlock door slid open with a hiss, exposing the vacuum beyond. The footprints glowed faintly under the ship's external lights, leading to a figure that hovered just outside the hull. The entity was more visible than ever before, its form translucent and elegant, reflecting the distant starlight. It moved gracefully, almost floating, unaffected by the vacuum. Lena activated the light pulses, sending a pattern of signals designed to represent basic mathematics and simple sequences. The entity paused, then adjusted its position, leaving footprints that mirrored the sequence perfectly. It was responding intelligently, understanding the signals and continuing the dialogue. Ilara watched in awe. Humanity had always relied on intellect and ingenuity to survive. Here, in the vast emptiness of space, they were demonstrating exactly that. The entity seemed to acknowledge this, its movements precise, deliberate, and almost reverent. For hours, the crew and the observer exchanged signals. Footprints, light pulses, and vibrations flowed back and forth, creating a rhythm that filled the Odyssey with a sense of purpose. The entity was teaching, testing, and learning simultaneously. Humanity was proving itself not only as intelligent, but also as adaptable, creative, and capable of understanding complexity. As the dialogue continued, Lena noticed a new pattern emerging in the footprints. It was subtle, almost hidden but unmistakable. The entity was sharing knowledge, energy patterns that could be measured and interpreted. Lena's heart raced. "Commander," she said urgently, "they're giving us information. This is not random. We can learn from them if we study it carefully." Ilara nodded. "Then we learn. Humanity thrives on knowledge. We take every opportunity to understand and adapt." The next cycles were filled with meticulous observation. Lena and Aaron worked together to decode the energy sequences embedded in the footprints. They discovered methods to manipulate energy fields, subtle techniques that could one day aid humanity in deep space travel. Every night, the crew gathered around monitors, analyzing and testing the information. They were learning in ways that no human had ever imagined. Despite the excitement, caution remained. The entity's intentions were still unknown, and one wrong move could provoke unintended consequences. Tarek and the security team kept strict protocols in place, monitoring for any signs of hostility. The crew remained disciplined, demonstrating the very qualities that made humanity remarkable: intelligence, foresight, and unity. Then, during one cycle, something extraordinary happened. The entity moved closer than ever before, tracing a path along the hull directly adjacent to the observation deck. Lena adjusted the signal sequence to match the entity's movements, and for the first time, the figure seemed to pause in recognition, almost as if it were observing the humans inside. Ilara felt a surge of pride. Humanity had created a connection across the impossible barrier of space. They were being seen, acknowledged, and respected. The entity's attention was focused on their intelligence, on their ability to communicate, and on their ingenuity. It was a test, yes, but it was also recognition. Humans were worthy of attention in a universe that often seemed indifferent. Over the following cycles, the interaction intensified. The entity began leaving patterns that formed simple symbols, shapes that Lena could decode into basic instructions or representations of energy flows. The crew realized that this was more than observation. It was teaching. Humanity was being offered knowledge beyond their current technology, and the only way to access it was through careful study, cooperation, and ingenuity. Ilara addressed the crew. "We are being given a gift. We do not know its full meaning yet, but we must approach it with intelligence and respect. Humanity has always learned from the unknown, and this is another opportunity to grow." The crew threw themselves into the work. Days and nights blurred together as they decoded signals, tested energy patterns, and refined their communication techniques. The entity continued to respond, its footprints forming paths that mirrored their efforts. It seemed to adjust its teaching based on how effectively the humans responded. One night, a breakthrough occurred. Lena discovered a sequence that allowed them to manipulate a small energy field projected from the hull. By carefully following the instructions hidden in the footprints, they created a stable pattern that pulsed with light, vibration, and controlled energy. The entity responded immediately, tracing its own pattern alongside theirs. Ilara watched, amazed. Humanity had not only learned from the entity, they had engaged in a collaborative process, creating a shared understanding across the vacuum of space. This was no longer a one-sided test. It was a partnership, an exchange that demonstrated exactly what humans were capable of when intelligence, creativity, and courage combined. The crew celebrated quietly, aware that their achievement was remarkable. They had faced the unknown, engaged with an intelligence beyond their comprehension, and demonstrated human ingenuity. The Odyssey was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's ability to adapt, learn, and thrive in the most extreme conditions. Even the youngest crew members felt the weight of the moment. They had watched as humans faced fear, uncertainty, and isolation, yet responded with determination, intelligence, and creativity. They had learned the most important lesson of all. Humanity was not insignificant in the universe. They could be recognized, respected, and valued for their ingenuity and spirit. As the cycles continued, the entity began to leave new types of footprints, complex, intricate patterns that suggested a higher level of intelligence and understanding. Lena and Aaron worked together to decode them, discovering advanced energy manipulations and methods that could one day revolutionize human technology. The process was slow and painstaking, but every success filled the crew with pride and determination. Ilara reflected on everything they had accomplished. Humanity had faced the unknown before, from the depths of Earth's oceans to the far reaches of space. Each challenge had been met with courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Now, in the vast emptiness of the Omega sector, humanity was being observed and recognized for exactly those qualities. The entity remained patient, never aggressive, always deliberate. Its footprints were a reminder that the universe was vast, complex, and often indifferent, but that humanity had qualities that could not be ignored. Ilara knew that this experience would change them all forever. Humanity had taken its first step into true recognition on a cosmic scale. The Odyssey and its crew had demonstrated not only survival, but the ability to understand, communicate, and engage with intelligence far beyond their own. They had proven that humanity's curiosity, ingenuity, and courage were forces to be reckoned with in any corner of the universe. And as the Odyssey continued its journey through the Omega sector, the crew realized that this was only the beginning. The footprints, the signals, and the dialogue with the entity were lessons, tests, and recognition all at once. Humanity had risen to the challenge. They had engaged with the unknown and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. Somewhere outside, in the silent darkness of space, the observer continued to watch, leaving footprints that spoke of knowledge, curiosity, and respect. Humanity had proven itself worthy, and the universe was beginning to take notice. The crew of the Odyssey knew that the journey ahead would be full of challenges, mysteries, and discoveries, but they also knew one unshakable truth. Humanity was never insignificant, never powerless, and never afraid to meet the unknown with courage and ingenuity. The Odyssey had been drifting through the Omega sector for weeks, its crew deeply engaged in the silent dialogue with the mysterious entity outside. Footprints continued to appear on the hull, patterns more intricate and purposeful than ever. Humanity had learned from them, responded to them, and adapted with intelligence and courage. The ship had become a bridge between the known and the unknown, a place where human ingenuity was tested and acknowledged in ways no one had ever imagined. Commander Ilara Voss stood on the observation deck, watching as the footprints formed a new sequence along the hull. This pattern was unlike the others, larger, more deliberate, and somehow unmistakably symbolic. Lena, Aaron, and Tarek were beside her, analyzing every movement, every pulse, and every shift in the subtle energy patterns. The crew had become skilled at reading the signals, interpreting them with precision, and responding intelligently. "This is different," Lena said, her voice full of awe. "It's not just testing us anymore. I think it's acknowledging us, recognizing our efforts, our intelligence, our unity." Ilara's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Then we must respond appropriately. Humanity thrives when we meet challenges with courage, creativity, and teamwork. This is the moment to demonstrate everything we are." The crew worked together to design a response. They combined light pulses, energy vibrations, and precise patterns on the hull that mirrored the observer's symbols. Every movement, every signal, was carefully calculated to demonstrate human ingenuity and understanding. It was a test unlike any other, a silent, cosmic acknowledgement that stretched across the vacuum of space. For hours, the dialogue continued. The entity moved gracefully, tracing the signals with footprints that shimmered faintly in the external lights. The patterns were intricate, almost artistic, conveying intelligence and awareness beyond human comprehension. Lena realized that the entity was not only observing, they were interacting, teaching, and acknowledging the humans aboard the Odyssey. Ilara addressed the crew. "We are being recognized for who we are. Humanity has faced the unknown before and has always risen to the occasion. Now we must rise again, not with fear, but with intelligence, unity, and courage." As the Odyssey continued its journey, the entity led the crew to new discoveries. Footprints formed around areas of the hull that revealed subtle energy fluctuations. Lena and Aaron carefully studied these regions, discovering methods to manipulate energy fields in ways that could revolutionize future deep space travel. Every new pattern, every movement, became a lesson, a gift, and a challenge all at once. The crew began to feel a profound connection to the entity. It had never attacked, never threatened, yet it had tested them rigorously, demanding creativity, patience, and intelligence. Humanity had passed each test, demonstrating the very qualities that had allowed them to thrive on Earth and now in the vastness of space. Pride and determination filled the crew, reinforcing the unity that had carried them through countless unknowns. One night, as the ship drifted quietly, the entity's footprints formed a pattern leading directly to the command deck. The crew watched in awe as the figure hovered outside, moving with an elegance that defied human understanding. Lena activated the communication sequence, sending complex pulses of light and vibration designed to convey human concepts of mathematics, energy, and curiosity. The entity paused, tracing the pulses with its footprints. It mirrored their signals perfectly, demonstrating comprehension and, perhaps, approval. Ilara felt a surge of pride. Humanity had been recognized not only for survival but for intelligence, creativity, and the courage to explore the unknown. Over the following cycles, the entity revealed more. Footprints formed sequences that, when decoded, provided insights into energy manipulation, subtle physics, and patterns of the spatial anomalies in the Omega sector. Lena and Aaron worked tirelessly, interpreting the data, testing it with precision, and integrating it into their understanding of space travel. Humanity was being taught by a being far beyond their current comprehension, and they were learning quickly, demonstrating ingenuity and adaptability. The crew's bond strengthened as well. Long hours of observation, analysis, and collaboration forged deeper trust and understanding. Even moments of tension became opportunities for growth. Fear had been transformed into curiosity, and uncertainty had been met with determination. Humanity was proving itself worthy in a universe that often seemed indifferent. Then, during one particularly quiet cycle, the entity did something extraordinary. Footprints formed a circular pattern around the hull, then led to a single point on the observation deck. It was as if the entity was signaling the culmination of the tests, a final acknowledgement of the crew's efforts. Lena carefully analyzed the energy pulses embedded in the footprints and realized that the entity was leaving a gift. information that could enhance human understanding of energy manipulation, propulsion, and interstellar navigation. Ilara addressed the crew. "This is the moment humanity has been preparing for. We have learned, adapted, and responded with intelligence and courage. Now we receive recognition and knowledge. Let us approach this with respect, care, and unity." The crew carefully followed the sequences, activating energy fields and creating precise patterns that mirrored the footprints. The entity responded instantly, moving alongside their efforts, leaving trails that shimmered with light and energy. Humanity and the observer had reached a level of mutual understanding, a connection that transcended language, species, and distance. Over the next cycles, the crew continued to decode the advanced information. Every breakthrough filled them with pride and hope. They realized that this knowledge could transform future human space exploration, allowing them to navigate, survive, and thrive in regions of space previously considered unreachable. Humanity was not only being recognized, it was being empowered. Ilara reflected on the journey so far. The crew had faced the unknown, encountered an intelligence far beyond their comprehension, and responded with courage, creativity, and unity. Humanity had proven itself once again. The Odyssey was more than a ship. It was a symbol of what humans could achieve when faced with impossible challenges. Then, as the crew worked, the entity left a final set of footprints across the hull. The pattern was unmistakable, a symbol that seemed to signify respect, acknowledgement, and completion. The humans aboard the Odyssey understood immediately. They had passed the tests, demonstrated the qualities that defined their species, and been recognized by a being of intelligence beyond imagination. Lena smiled, tears in her eyes. "They see us. They recognize us. Humanity has been acknowledged." Ilara placed a hand on the console, her expression calm but radiant. "Humanity thrives in the unknown. We have always risen to the challenge, and now the universe has noticed. This is only the beginning of what we can achieve." The crew gathered together on the observation deck, watching as the footprints slowly faded into the darkness of space. The entity had departed, leaving the Odyssey enriched with knowledge, inspired by courage, and strengthened by unity. The silent acknowledgement of humanity's ingenuity and adaptability remained, a testament to the human spirit. As the ship continued its journey, the crew shared their experiences with one another, reflecting on everything they had learned. Fear had been replaced by curiosity, uncertainty by confidence, and isolation by connection. Humanity had proven itself capable of understanding, adapting, and thriving in the presence of intelligence far beyond its own. Even the youngest crew members felt the weight of the experience. They had witnessed humans facing the unknown with courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. They had learned the most important lesson of all. Humanity was never insignificant, never powerless, and always capable of rising to meet any challenge. The Odyssey sailed on through the Omega sector, carrying with it not just humans, but the knowledge, pride, and recognition earned through courage and perseverance. Humanity had been tested, observed, and acknowledged. And in that acknowledgement lay a powerful truth. The universe was vast and mysterious, but humans were capable of remarkable things when they worked together, learned from the unknown, and never lost their courage. As the days passed, the crew began documenting everything. Their logs would inspire future generations, detailing not only the knowledge gained, but also the human qualities that had earned them recognition. Curiosity, intelligence, adaptability, unity, and courage. These were the traits that had allowed humanity to engage with an intelligence far beyond their own and emerge stronger for it. Ilara stood one final time on the observation deck, gazing into the darkness where the footprints had appeared. Somewhere out there, the entity watched silently, recognizing humanity's achievements. she felt a profound sense of pride. Not just for herself or her crew, but for all of humanity. "We are seen," she said quietly to herself. "Humanity is recognized, and this is only the beginning." The Odyssey continued its journey deeper into uncharted space, carrying with it the legacy of human ingenuity and courage. The crew knew that other challenges awaited, other unknowns to confront, but they also knew that humanity had been acknowledged and respected by forces far beyond comprehension. That recognition, subtle but powerful, was proof that humans were capable of greatness in any corner of the universe. Somewhere in the Omega sector, new footprints formed silently on another vessel, a quiet reminder that humanity's story had just begun. The universe had taken notice, and humans were ready to rise to every challenge, explore every mystery, and leave their mark wherever they went. The spirit of humanity burned brighter than the distant stars, a beacon of courage, intelligence, and unity that could never be ignored. The Odyssey sailed onward, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it embraced the unknown, faced it with courage, and proved that intelligence, creativity, and unity were the forces that defined them. Humanity had been tested, recognized, and empowered. The journey had changed them forever, and the universe would never forget that humans had arrived, ready to leave their footprints on the cosmos.